So it is May 2026. What's going on in our local housing market? Sam Cantor, chief economist, Freddie Mac. Rates currently stand at their lowest level in the last 3 spring home buying seasons. This improvement, coupled with a pickup in purchase applications and refinance activity, as well as an increase in monthly pending home sales, underscores signs of improving momentum in the market. So remember, that's nationally. Rates did come down a little bit, which is good. They're lowest now for the last 3 spring seasons. They did raise from our low point probably in January of those high 5, low 6s. They've come back a little bit off of, the 6.5 that they've been at. Rates really do play such a big role in everything. Without a doubt, it's overall, I think, consumer confidence and consumer sentiment is what will dictate our market up and down, those 5% swings. Either way, 1 week may be better, 1 week may be, a little bit less with everything that's going on with the Middle East, with oil, with, unfortunately, probably inflation numbers. We are seeing this. People are a little cautious. And we also have a lot less supply on the market, which is creating this overall market kind of, volcano kind of coming out. Hopefully we don't have any type of bubble situations. As long as it kind of stays confined, I think we're going to be fine. Where are mortgage rates projected to go? So by the end of, let's say, this year, 6.17. And you know what? Q2, at the end of Q2 2027, the same thing, 6.17 is what everybody's projecting as the national average. So you know what? The rates are here. And once again, I do think 6% is a good rate overall. I think the 4.5s, the 5s, honestly, are probably not coming for a while. I think they only get there if the, unfortunately, economy goes in a really bad way, that we'll see those lower interest rates. Mortgage rates aren't expected to change much over the next several quarters, which has implications for prospective home buyers and sellers. What that really means is that rates are going to be what they're going to be. You may have some fluctuations, but you got to go out. If this is the right time for you to buy, you buy. I had a conversation with somebody last night, and they're like, should I buy now? Do I wait a year? And I said, you got to buy when it's the right time for you to buy. Interest rates will always fluctuate. The market's always going to fluctuate. What's right for you? Okay? In this market, pricing right or be ready to adjust. Without a doubt. I've said this now for the last 3 years or more. 30 days on the market today is equivalent to 3 months on the market pre-pandemic. You have a shorter window to get it wrong. Everybody asks if a house has been sitting on the market for 30 days, what's wrong with it? Why? Because they expect the property to go highest and best. Buyers are conditioned that there's going to be a bidding war on this property. So that's a big part of it, of what's going on and what we're seeing overall. And rates kind of staying in this realm, I think is going to keep that going as long as there is no major outbreaks, no major economic news. Hopefully oil kind of comes down a little bit and we don't see big inflation numbers. Realtor.com put out, despite the economic headwinds whipped up by the ongoing Iran conflict and cooling consumer sentiment, most home sellers are brimming with optimism that the spring and expect their properties to fetch top dollar. Without a doubt, I think especially in our area, we are still seeing that. Like I said, that lack of supply makes a big difference on it, and we are seeing consumer sentiment around the housing market here still pretty strong. The listing price is one of the first details potential buyers notice when browsing properties. That's a very, very important fact. They see that. If the perception is, hey, this property is overpriced, or hey, this doesn't make sense, they skip it. Right? People buy off of what their monthly payments are, what they can afford. So if that price is so far out there, it's not going to get anywhere. A well-priced home can generate more interest and increase showings. On the other hand, if a home is priced too high compared to similar properties in the area, it may struggle to attract buyers and remain on the market longer. That's balance. We talk about it. Do we price it right at market value? Do we go high and hope that there's, going to be some negotiation? We have to balance that out. And I think every situation is different. I think it depends on where the homeowner is at the time. And I also think what that micro market is for them. Is there no available inventory? Is the properties going crazy there? Is the demand so crazy that maybe you stretch it? If the things are sitting on the market and there's 5 things still available, then you probably can't stretch it. And that's where we really have to look at your property, see what's the best to be able to guide you, what's the best direction for you specifically in that specific time. Sellers who overprice are having to adjust. This is an interesting graphic that we're going to put in the email. We're seeing it that this has rose, of course, since the pandemic. It's down a little bit so far from last year. We'll see what that number ultimately comes out. Price cuts get bigger as listings longer, without a doubt. The longer the property sits on the market, the bigger the price cut, ends up happening. We don't want that. Time on the market, even when people say, well, I'm not in a rush, that's fine. You want to maximize the money that's coming out. You have to factor that time factor into it. And that's something that we do really well with our clients. So, when we sit down, you and I, we can definitely take advantage of that and see what makes sense. Foreclosure activity is rising. Okay, this is an interesting one. In the national scheme, overall foreclosure stuff is rising. I don't think that we're seeing a big influx here. And even if we did, foreclosures in New York take anywhere probably on average from 3 to 5 years, where in most other states, they could take a year or two. So it takes so much longer for these things to come in that unless we're seeing a big unemployment rate in our market, or prices start to decrease, I don't think that's really going to have a big impact on our local market. In other markets, if the property was $500,000 and now it's $450,000, if they can't afford it, they owe, probably $550,000, $600,000 now, and it's not worth going through. You need a short sale or a foreclosure. In our market, if the house is worth $500,000 today and tomorrow it's going to be worth $550,000 because we're in an increasing market, usually there's still some equity, and most of the people that ended up buying properties here used a larger down payment, so we're not seeing so much of that foreclosure process here, and people are also takes longer for a property to go into foreclosure. This is a great fact. Credit Karma put out more than 3 in 4 Americans, 78% report they do not feel financially secure. The top culprit is rising cost of living, followed by the current state of the economy. This is big because what does it do for inflation? If inflation numbers go up, do the feds raise rates? I think if the feds raise rates, it's going to tell the buying public in our area, hey, the economy's not in a great setting, rates are going up, and that may pull some of that demand out. Supply, I do believe, will remain steady, and we will not see a lot of it because a lot of people that have that 3% or that don't need to make a move are probably staying. Does it take some of that demand out where there's not bidding wars and everything? We'll see. Hopefully, we get out of Iran, we get the Strait of Hormuz open, oil's going, everything's there, inflation numbers come down, and we're fine. But just on the other side, that potentially may mean something. This is also another great stat. 2/3 of all homeowners in the U.S. have paid off their mortgage or have at least 50% equity. This is why I said with the foreclosure stuff, a lot of people have equity in their property and they do not need to sell it. Or if they do, it's not a foreclosure situation, but they can still make 100, 2, 3, 4, 500,000, whatever the case is. And if they're moving or they're going to rent, whatever the case is, they have those options there. So I think that's a really important fact. So overall, I think we're in a really strong market here. We're seeing positive impact on stuff. We are still seeing bidding wars happen out there. Properties are moving. We do have a little bit less inventory. If you want to see what your home would fetch in this market, what's going on, what's right for timing, what's right for you, or you're looking to buy, you want to see, is now the right time? How do I position myself? How do I beat the bidding wars? What are we going to do? Reach out, call, text, DM, smoke signals, Geico airplane on the beach, whatever it takes. Let's go through it. Let's see what works for you, and we'll figure it out.